And addressing to this point, sort of taking a preemptive strike on part of Crash Course, what they've challenged is, and they actually referred to the soul-making theodicy of Professor John Hick, and they said that if God is using evil to make us into better beings, if God is using evil for a greater purpose, then why not smaller sense of evil? And they use the analogy of why not a paper cut instead of genocides and war crimes and calamities and viruses. Why can't God use simple and small measures of evil that won't have these sense of ramifications into making us better humans?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you, this is a weird. I've had this argument many times, and there's several aspects to why it's just ridiculous. First of all, who is to say how much evil is necessary to to teach us what we need to know, to teach us the horror of sin and rebellion? Who is to say how much evil is necessary? It's not just simply, for instance, people say, well, why would God allow the Holocaust and the death of 6 million Jews? I reply to that and I said, well, if only 6,000 Jews died, would that be okay with you? Of course, atheists are like, no, of course 6,000 Jews shouldn't die. And I'll say, well, what about if 6 Jews died? Would that be okay with you? No, of course that wouldn't be okay. Well, I mean, where does it stop? This is a completely subjective claim that how much evil should God allow to teach us the horror of rebellion? A paper cut is not going to teach anyone the horror of rebellion against God. It may teach us that we need to be more careful with the way we handle paper, but it's not going to teach us the horror of rebellion against God. Let me quote to you something from historian George Krenn and psychologist Leon Rappaport, who wrote on the Holocaust. They wrote this. They said, "What remains is a central." These are not Christians, not Christians. They're writing about the Holocaust. They said, "What remains is a central, deadening sense of despair over the human species. Where can one find an affirmative meaning in life if human beings can do such things? Along with this despair, there may also come a desperate new feeling to the vulnerability attached to the fact that one is human. If one keeps at the Holocaust long enough, then sooner or later the ultimate truth begins to reveal itself. One knows finally that one might either do it or be done to. If it could happen on such a massive scale elsewhere, it can happen anywhere. And like it or not, Auschwitz expands the universe of consciousness no less than landings on the moon." That's correct. What they said is correct. But notice non-Christians coming to despair over the nature of humankind, and they did it over what? God allowing the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
But God allowing people to be very, very cruel to each other causes people, even non-Christians, to say people are not good. And that's a lesson that God wants to get across. Until you're born
Exactly.
again, you cannot be a good person. And we don't like that lesson, but
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we need that lesson.